Target at 800 meters. Wind from left. Hold 2 mils left.
Copy. Holding left.
Send it.
The first bullet leaves the barrel at 750 feet per second. Emma Thorne. Caldwell watches it arc through the Afghan dawn, invisible to everyone but her. In her mind, she tracks every millimeter of its journey, the climb through thin mountain air, the drift as crosswind catches the copper jacket, the inevitable pull of gravity drawing it earthward toward a man who doesn't know he's already dead. 5 seconds of flight time, 5 seconds of perfect mathematics. The Taliban commander drops like a puppet with cut strings. Christ almighty! Commander Jack Morrison's voice cuts through the morning silence rough as gravel. Where the hell did you learn to shoot like that? Emma doesn't take her eye from the loopholed scope. Her finger moves with practiced efficiency, cycling the bolt on her Remington 700 chambering the next round. Even now, even with the target down, she scans for secondaries, for threats, for the next problem that needs solving. My grandfather, sir. Her voice is steady, clinical. Gunnery Sergeant Robert Caldwell, Marine Scout Sniper, Korea, November 1952. Morrison lowers his binoculars. 52 years old, 28 years in the teams, and he's just watched something he didn't think was possible. The rangefinder on his vest reads 850 meters, over a mile, in wind conditions that would make most snipers pack up and go home. The woman beside him, 5'3" blonde hair, pulled back in a regulation bun, green eyes that never seemed to blink, just made it look like target practice. Korea, Morrison says. He knows that war. His own father served, there came home with frostbite scars and stories he never told. Your grandfather must have been something special. He was. Emma finally pulls back from the scope, her cheek bearing the slight impression of the stock. He taught me everything. Before he died, he made me promise I'd be better than good. He said good gets you killed in this job. Morrison studies her. Emma Thorne Caldwell, 27 years old, Navy JTAC specialist, Joint Terminal Attack Controller, the person who coordinates airstrikes calls, and the cavalry handles communications. A support role. A safe role. Except nothing about Emma Caldwell fits that description. Her jacket came through channels 2 months ago. 3 years at Marine Scout Sniper School before she transferred to Navy. Graduated top of her class. Qualified on every long-range weapon system in the arsenal. Then she requested JTAC training, and everyone figured she was washing out, moving to something easier. They were wrong. Pack it up, Morrison says. We've got a briefing in 30. Emma's already breaking down her rifle movements, smooth and automatic. The Remington 700 disappears into its case like a secret being put away. Morrison watches her work and thinks about the mission brief sitting on his desk back at FOB Wolverine. Operation Phantom Thunder. A target that's been haunting them for months, and a shot that everyone says can't be made. 72 hours earlier, the briefing room at Forward Operating Base, Wolverine smelled like coffee sweat and the particular kind of tension that comes before bad news. Morrison stood at the front arms crossed, watching his team file in. 8 of his best SEAL Team 5, the ones who'd been with him through Fallujah, through Ramadi, through missions that would never make it into official reports. Chief Petty Officer Garrett McKenzie came in first, 40 years old, and built like a middleweight boxer, carrying the team's SR-25 sniper rifle like it was part of his body. Behind him, the assault team, Petty Officer First Class Hartley, the breacher. Stevens and Martinez, automatic weapons. Young Kowalski, the medic who'd saved 3 lives in a firefight last month. And Emma slipping in last, taking a seat in the back. Always watching, always calculating. Gentlemen, Morrison began, then caught himself. And Petty Officer Caldwell, we've got a target. The projector flickered to life. A face appeared on the screen. Middle Eastern man, late 40s, thick beard eyes that held the kind of certainty that made him dangerous. Khalid Durrani, Taliban commander, call sign the Ghost, responsible for 47 coalition deaths over the past 18 months. IEDs, ambushes, coordinated attacks on supply convoys. He's smart. He's careful, and he's been untouchable. Morrison clicked to the next slide. Satellite imagery of a compound in the Peak Valley stone buildings clustered on a ridgeline. Intel confirms he's here. Small security detail, minimal fortifications. He thinks he's safe because of the terrain. Another click. Topographical map. The problem is access. The valley's a kill box. Every approach is exposed. We can't get close without getting shredded. Mackenzie leaned forward. What's the range from feasible overwatch positions? 2,800 to 3,200 meters. Morrison let that sink in. Give or take. Someone whistled low. Mackenzie shook his head. Commander, that's theoretical distance. In perfect conditions, maybe. But in the Peck Valley wind shear from the mountains, heat mirage altitude, I know the problems, Chief. With respect, sir, I'm good. I'm real good. But at that range in those conditions, Mackenzie's jaw tightened. It's a coin flip, not a shot. Maybe I get lucky. Maybe I don't. Maybe Durrani moves at the wrong second, and we just pissed away our only chance. The room went quiet. Everyone knew Mackenzie was right. Longest confirmed sniper kill in history was 2,400, and change made by a British sniper in near-perfect conditions. They were talking about another half-mile on top of that. Commander, Emma's voice soft but clear. Every head turned. She stood up, stepped forward into the light. I can make that shot. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Mackenzie laughed. Not cruel, but incredulous. Caldwell, no disrespect, but this isn't the qualification range. This is combat conditions. I know what it is, Chief. Emma's eyes didn't leave Morrison. My grandfather's confirmed record was 286 meters. Korea, winter of 1952. Enemy machine gun nest. First shot at that distance in Marine Corps history. She paused. I've exceeded that distance, multiple times, in conditions that would make the Peck Valley look easy. Morrison studied her. You're serious? Yes, sir. You understand what you're volunteering for? If you miss, Durrani disappears. Hundreds more soldiers die while we try to find him again. The weight of every single one of those deaths sits on your shoulders. I understand, Commander. Emma's voice didn't waver. I also understand that Chief Mackenzie just told you he can't guarantee the shot. I can. Mackenzie stood up, 6 inches taller than Emma, twice her weight. Commander, I need to speak with you. Privately. Whatever you need to say it here. Sir, she's never done this in combat. She's support personnel. We need someone who what? Emma cut in. Who has more experience missing? The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. Morrison held up a hand. Caldwell, you've got sand, I'll give you that. But Chief Mackenzie's right about one thing. Combat is different than the range. So here's what we're going to do. Tomorrow morning, 0600. I want you at the long-range qualification course. 2,400 meters combat conditions as close as we can simulate. You make that shot, we'll talk. Emma nodded once. Yes, sir. Dismissed. That night, Emma sat alone in her quarters, a plywood box that barely qualified as a room with a cot, a footlocker, and a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. On her cot lay a leather journal, worn soft with age and handling. The pages were yellowed, filled with cramped handwriting and technical diagrams. She opened it carefully, the spine cracking like old bones. Gunnery Sergeant Robert Caldwell. Personal log. Korea 1952. The entries were sparse, clinical. Range estimations. Wind calculations. Confirmed kills logged with the same emotional weight as grocery lists. But 3/4 through the tone changed. November 14th, 1952. Made the longest shot of my career today. 286 yards. Enemy spotter. North Korean, embedded with Chinese forces. Had him dead to rights in my scope. 19 years old, maybe. Scared. Shaking. I had the shot. Perfect conditions. No wind. Clear sight picture. My spotter was calling it in. Take him now. I didn't pull the trigger. Watched him through the scope for 2 full minutes. Saw him realize someone had him zeroed. Saw him make the choice to run instead of calling in our position. He lived. 40 men in my unit lived because he ran instead of radioing. They court-martialed me for it. Failure to engage. Said I compromised the mission. Maybe I did. But some decisions transcend orders. Some mercy is worth the cost. The hardest shot isn't the longest one. It's knowing when not to take it. Emma traced the words with her finger. She'd read this entry 100 times, memorized every word. Her grandfather never spoke about Korea, never told stories about the war. He just took her to the ranch every summer, set up targets at impossible distances,
and taught her the mathematics of death. "Shooting is just physics, Emma," he'd say, his voice gravelly from 60 years of cigarettes. "Wind speed, air densities, Coriolis effect, spin drift. You account for every variable, you make the calculation, you commit to the solution. Everything else is just noise." She'd been 8 years old the first time she fired his Remington 700. The recoil had knocked her flat on her back. He'd laughed, helped her up, adjusted her stance, made her try again.
By age 12, she was out-hooting adults at local competitions. By 16, she was making shots that seasoned hunters called impossible. By 20, she knew she wanted to be a Marine. The Scout Sniper School nearly broke her. Not physically, she was stronger than she looked, could ruck 30 miles with a full pack and barely break a sweat. But the instructors didn't want her there, made it clear. A woman in Scout Sniper School was a distraction, a liability, a publicity stunt. They gave her every reason to quit. She graduated first in her class. Then she transferred to Navy, requested JTAC training, and everyone assumed she'd burned out. Couldn't handle the pressure, moving to something safer, easier, more appropriate. They were wrong. Emma closed the journal, placed it carefully back in her footlocker. Tomorrow morning, she'd prove exactly how wrong they were. She lay back on her cot and ran through the calculations in her head. 2,400 meters. Altitude, temperature, wind. The Remington 700 in her hands, custom-built to her grandfather's specifications. The scope that had logged over 10,000 rounds of practice. She closed her eyes and visualized the shot. The target downrange, the bullet's arc, the impact. In her mind, it was already done. The sun hadn't crested the Hindu Kush when Emma arrived at the range. The air was thin and cold frost still clinging to the rocks. Morrison was already there drinking coffee from a metal canteen. Mackenzie stood beside him, arms crossed, face unreadable. 4 other SEALs had come to watch. Word had spread. Caldwell. Morrison's breath formed clouds in the morning air. "Your weapon." Emma unzipped the case. The Remington 700 gleamed in the pre-dawn light. 338. Lapua Magnum, custom barrel, hand-loaded ammunition. The scope was a Night Force ATAC-R, 735X magnification parallax adjustment, good to 3,000 yards. Her grandfather's rifle, the one he'd used in Korea, rebuilt, upgraded, but still carrying the same serial number stamped into the receiver 60 years ago. Targets at 2,400 meters. Morrison pointed downrange. Winds variable 8 to 12 miles per hour. Temperatures 43 degrees rising. Humidity's low. You've got 5 rounds. Make them count. Emma nodded. She pulled out a small notebook, started running calculations. The SEALs watched in silence as she worked checking the Kestrel weather meter clipped to her vest, noting wind direction, temperature, barometric pressure. Her pencil moved rapidly across the paper numbers, flowing like water. Mackenzie couldn't help himself. "What are you calculating?" "Everything." Emma didn't look up. "Temperature affects air density. Lower density means less bullet drop. Humidity's minimal, so that's not a major factor. Wind's the problem, it's swirling inconsistent. I need to wait for a pattern." She clicked her rangefinder. Range confirmed 2,400 meters, 7,197 feet. Altitude here is 7,400 feet above sea level, which means we don't need the math lesson, Mackenzie said. "Chief?" Morrison's voice carried warning. "Let her work." Emma continued pencil scratching. Bullet drop at this distance with 338, Lapua Magnum, accounting for altitude and temperature, 42.3 MOA. Minute of angle 1 MOA equals approximately 1 inch at 100 yards, so at 2,400 yards, 1 MOA equals 24 inches. She looked up, meeting Mackenzie's eyes. "That means if I'm off by even half an MOA, I miss by 12 inches. At this distance, there's no such thing as close enough." "So how do you account for it?" "Practice. Repetition. Knowing your weapon system so well that it becomes an extension of your body." Emma's hands moved to the rifle, checking the action, the trigger pull, and accepting that some variables you can't control. You just have to commit to the solution and trust your training. She settled into position. Prone rifle bipod, extended body aligned behind the weapon. The morning sun broke over the mountains, painting the valley in gold and shadow. Through the scope, the target was a small steel plate, man-sized, barely visible. "Wind's settling," Emma murmured. "Shifting from 8 miles per hour to..." 6, 5. Pattern steadying. Morrison watched through binoculars. Mackenzie had his own scope tracking the same target. Emma's breathing slowed. In, out, in, out. Each breath deliberate, controlled. Her heart rate dropped 70 beats per minute to 60 to 50. A meditation technique her grandfather had taught her, borrowed from Olympic shooters. Scope adjustment. She said quietly, more to herself than anyone else. 42.3 MOA elevation. Wind, 6 miles per hour at 2 o'clock means 4.8 MOA windage correction. Her fingers turned the turrets on the scope. Click, click, click. Each adjustment precise, measured. Ready, she whispered. The world narrowed to the crosshairs. The target was a dot at this distance, barely distinguishable from the rocks around it. Emma's finger found the trigger, a crisp 3.5-pound pull, exactly as her grandfather had set it. She exhaled halfway, held. Between heartbeats, she squeezed. The Remington 700 roared. Recoil punched into her shoulder. She rode it, stayed on target, watched through the scope. 3 seconds of flight time. The bullet drops, a man-height climbs again as the trajectory peaks, then falls toward Earth. Crosswind pushes it right. Spin drift pulls it further. Gravity works its mathematics. The steel plate rang like a bell. Dead center. Holy, one of the SEALs started. Again, Morrison said. Emma cycled the bolt. Chamber another round. Breathe. Calculate. This time, Mackenzie called out a wind shift. Gusting to 10 miles per hour. Variable. Emma adjusted. Waited. The wind was like a living thing, pushing and pulling. She watched the flags downrange, gauged the movement, found the pattern. Shot 2. Another hit. Wind's increasing, Mackenzie called. 12 to 15. Understood. Emma ran new numbers in her head. More windage correction needed. The target was dancing in the mirage now, heat from the rising sun distorting everything. Shot 3. High right by 6 inches. Adjust, Morrison said. Already on it. Emma's fingers moved on the scope. She'd felt that shot go wrong in the moment of trigger press, knew she'd pulled slightly. Minor adjustments. Breathe, reset, shot 4. Dead center. Morrison lowered his binoculars, looked at Mackenzie. Chief. Mackenzie's jaw worked like he was chewing rocks. Commander, one more. Make it hard. Morrison nodded. Caldwell, hold position. We're moving the target. 2 SEALs jogged downrange. They repositioned the steel plate, not just moving it laterally, but setting it at an angle partially concealed behind rocks. Harder to see, harder to hit. When they jogged back, Morrison checked his rangefinder. Range now 2,450 meters. Winds gusting to 18 miles per hour. Target's at a 45-degree angle. You've got 1 round left. Emma pulled back from the scope, blinked, cleared her vision. Picked up the Kestrel. New calculations. The angled target meant reduced surface area, less margin for error. The wind was worse now, inconsistent swirling in the valley. 90 seconds of calculation. Her hand moved across the notebook, numbers flowing. This is the shot, she said quietly. This is the one that matters. She settled back into position. Found the target through the scope, barely visible now, just a sliver of steel behind rock. The wind was chaos, gusting, dropping, gusting again. She needed a window. A moment of calm. 30 seconds passed. 60. Morrison shifted his weight, impatient. Emma waited. Her grandfather's voice in her head. Patience is more important than skill. You can be the best shot in the world, but if you take it in the wrong conditions, you miss. Wait for your moment. It will come. 90 seconds. The wind dropped. 5 seconds of relative calm. Emma's finger found the trigger. Exhale. Hold. Between heartbeats, squeeze. The Remington spoke its truth. 4 seconds of flight. The bullet carved through morning air, climbing its arc, fighting wind and gravity and every force of physics that wanted to drag it down. The steel plate rang, not center mass, but a hit. Solid, confirmed, undeniable. Morrison lowered his binoculars slowly. Turned to Mackenzie. Chief. Mackenzie stared downrange for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. Commander, she made every shot except one, in conditions that would have had me packing up my rifle. And that last one angled. Target variable wind, I wouldn't have taken it. So she's better than me. Mackenzie looked at Emma, something like respect in his eyes. She's better than anyone I've ever seen. Morrison walked over to where Emma was still prone, still looking through the scope. Caldwell, on your feet. She stood, slinging the rifle across her back. Tomorrow morning, 400, we brief the actual operation. Bring that rifle. Bring your grandfather's journal. Bring every piece of knowledge you have about long-range shooting. Morrison's face was stone. Because you're primary sniper for Operation Phantom Thunder. Mackenzie's your spotter. And if you miss, we all die. Emma snapped to attention. Understood, sir. Dismissed. As Emma walked away, rifle case in hand, Mackenzie approached Morrison, kept his voice low. Sir, you're sure about this? You just told me she's better than you. At shooting, yes. But combat? Chief, I watched her wait 90 seconds for the wind. Most snipers would have forced the shot, tried to make it happen. She waited for conditions to be right. Morrison turned to face him. That kind of patience under pressure. That's what I need. Not the cowboy who thinks he can beat physics through sheer will. Mackenzie nodded slowly. What aren't you telling me? Morrison pulled out a manila folder from inside his jacket. Opened it. Inside was a single photograph, grainy, clearly taken from long distance. A man, Caucasian, late 40s, wearing tactical gear. This is classified. TS SCI. But you need to know what we're really walking into. Mackenzie studied the photo. Who is he? Colonel Marcus Vance. Former Delta Force. One of the best snipers America ever produced. Record kill 30,089 meters. Made it in Iraq 2007. I remember hearing about that. So what's the problem? Morrison's voice went flat. Vance went dark in 2009. Declared AWOL, then declared dead when we couldn't find him. Except he's not dead. He's alive, working as a mercenary advisor to the Taliban. And he's the one protecting Khalid Durrani. The pieces clicked together in Mackenzie's head. White Death. The sniper who's killed 15 of ours. That's Vance. Confirmed. 3 days ago, CIA intercepted communications. Vance is in the Peck Valley training Taliban fighters in counter-sniper operations, teaching them everything we taught him. So this whole operation, Durrani is secondary. Durrani is the bait. Vance is the real target. Morrison's eyes were hard as flint. CIA wants him eliminated, quietly. No trial, no publicity, no questions about how an American hero became a traitor. Just a bullet from long distance and a body that never makes it home. And you're sending Caldwell? Vance was trained by the same doctrine as her grandfather. He studied Robert Caldwell's methods, tried to surpass them. When Vance made that 30,089-meter shot, you know what he said? Morrison paused. He said it was dedicated to the memory of Gunnery Sergeant Caldwell. Said he was trying to honor the legacy. Jesus. Emma doesn't know yet. About Vance being American, about his connection to her grandfather's legacy. But she needs to be the one who takes this shot. Morrison closed the folder. Because if anyone can beat Vance at his own game, it's the woman who inherited Robert Caldwell's gift. When do you tell her? Tonight. Private briefing. Just her. Morrison turned back toward the fob. Get some rest, Chief. Tomorrow we start mission prep, and this one's going to get ugly before it's done. That evening, Emma sat in Morrison's office. The space was barely larger than her quarters plywood walls, a metal desk, a chair that had seen better days. Morrison sat across from her, the classified folder between them. What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room, he began. Emma nodded. Morrison slid the folder across. Open it. She did. Saw the photograph. Studied the man's face, hard angles, cold eyes, the bearing of someone who'd spent decades in special operations. Colonel Marcus Vance, Morrison said. Ring any bells? Of a Delta Force. Record holder for longest confirmed kill. 30,089 meters Iraq, 2007. Emma looked up. Why are you showing me this? Because he's our real target, not Durrani. Emma's eyes widened slightly. Vance is alive. He was declared. Dead, I know. Except he's very much alive, working for the other side. Advising Taliban forces. Teaching them counter-sniper tactics. He's the one they call White Death. The implications hit Emma like a physical blow. An American. We're hunting an American. An American traitor who's killed 15 coalition soldiers. Morrison leaned forward. Vance studied your grandfather's work. When he was at Fort Bragg, he spent months analyzing every shot Robert Caldwell ever made. Read every report, studied every operation. He was obsessed with surpassing the Caldwell legacy. Emma's mind raced. The 30,089-meter shot, he dedicated it to your grandfather. Said he was honoring the tradition. Morrison's voice went hard. Then he took everything we taught him and sold it to the enemy. So no, Emma, this isn't about honor anymore. This is about stopping a traitor before he kills more Americans. Why me? Because Vance thinks he's the heir to your grandfather's legacy. He thinks he surpassed it. But you, Morrison pointed at her, you're the real heir. Blood, training, dedication. And if anyone's going to beat Vance at his own game, it needs to be a Caldwell. Emma closed the folder slowly. What's the ROE, rules of engagement? Lethal force authorized. No warning, no attempt at capture. The mission is elimination, pure and simple. Morrison paused. I need to know if you can do this. Killing Taliban fighters is one thing. Killing an American, even a traitor, that's different. That's a line that once you cross, you don't come back from. Emma thought of her grandfather's journal. The entry about mercy. About the shot he didn't take. Sir, my grandfather spared an enemy because he saw something worth saving. A scared kid who made a choice to run instead of fight. She met Morrison's eyes. Marcus Vance isn't that kid. He's a trained killer who chose to betray his country, who's teaching the enemy how to kill more Americans. There's nothing worth saving there. So you can make this shot. I can make any shot you need me to make. Emma stood. When do we leave? 0400 tomorrow. Full mission brief at 0500. Insertion at 23:15. Morrison stood as well. Get some rest. It's a long flight to the Peach Valley. Emma turned to leave, then paused. Commander, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Why didn't you tell me this during the open briefing? Morrison was quiet for a moment. Because the moment the team knows we're hunting an American, everything changes. They start second-guessing. Start wondering if maybe there's another way. Politics and ethics get in the way of what needs to be done. He looked at her steadily. But you needed to know. Because when you're looking through that scope at 3,200 meters, when Vance is in your crosshairs, I need you to understand exactly who you're killing and why. I understand, sir. Good. Dismissed. Emma spent the night preparing her gear with the methodical precision of ritual. Each piece of equipment was checked, double-checked, test-fired, or test-used. The Remington 700 was field-stripped, cleaned, reassembled. Every round of ammunition was inspected, weighed, measured. Her Kestrel weather meter was calibrated. Her rangefinder was tested against known distances. At midnight, she allowed herself one moment of doubt. Sitting on her cot, grandfather's journal in her lap, she wondered what he would think. Would he approve? Would he see this as justice or just another version of the thing that got him court-martialed? She found the entry again. November 14th, 1952. Read it one more time. The hardest shot isn't the longest one. It's knowing when not to take it. But her grandfather had been talking about mercy, about seeing humanity in the enemy, about choosing not to kill when killing would have been easier. Vance had made his choices. Trained Americans, then sold them out. Killed 15 soldiers who trusted their training, their equipment, their intelligence would keep them safe. He'd chosen profit over honor, greed over loyalty. Emma closed the journal. Some mercy is worth the cost, her grandfather had written, but some choices forfeit the right to mercy. She would make the shot. Not for revenge, not for glory,